Hello, friends. Are you ready to hear the rest of the tale? Then let us commence. I bet you've been wondering and worrying all about Minko since last we spoke, yeah? That's no surprise, as when last we saw the resolute monk, he was hiding from red-eyed scanning spider automatons in a post-apocalyptic Fey city with I'm guessing, a gnome named Bandamun. Woof! You know, sometimes I just see it all the way back and just think, oi, how did we get here? So, Bandamun was some kind of rebel or resistance fighter here in this city. And, oh yeah, he and Meenko, and others apparently, were all... well, basically they were all ghosts, although they really didn't want to be called that. But it turns out these eight-legged laser spider automatons could actually see ghosts, so our heroes needed to proceed with caution. Stealthily weaving through the ruined streets, Meenko and his new friend were able to avoid detection and, with only a few close calls, made it to a sewer and safety. Walking through the actually not-so-terrible sewers, Meenko learned from Bandamun that the gnome, or whatever he was, had been ghosted when the city had been destroyed in a catastrophic event that was a lot like the rift in the sky, now that you mention it. When he learned that Meenko had come from beyond Merkerhain, well, he had a strangely excited reaction about that. Bandamun also told Meenko that there was someone where they were going who could help him adapt a little better to, well, to whatever he was now. Soon, the two new friends arrived at their destination, and after passing through an illusion hiding the entrance and a centaur sentry, Bandamun showed Minko into the headquarters of the resistance in Merkerhain. It was a little underwhelming, to be honest. Sure, it'll be fine, though. Just across the old Fey realm, we find the rest of the Ragtags at camp immediately after a harrowing encounter with a mysterious and extremely powerful icy Fey knight who almost killed Varys and Regal, and then disappeared as though he were toying with everyone. Needless to say, that had everyone a little rattled. So sleep didn't come easy for most. Actually, that's not entirely true. As a haunted suit of armour, Regal could slip into a sort of trance easily enough, and he could even keep watch while doing it. Actually pretty efficient, that is. Normally he didn't dream. At least, not in the way most do. For Regal, when he did have something happen when he was in sentry mode, it was a strange and confusing collection of half-remembered snippets and traumatic war flashbacks. I guess that explains his whole, regalness. I feel pretty bad for the gruff, grumpy geezer now. On this night, however, he experienced something different entirely. In the dream or vision or whatever it was, Regal was not in his body. Yes. I do understand that that is something he can say all the time. But this time, I mean, he wasn't inside his armour shelf. In fact, he saw pieces of his armour strewn on a surgical table in the same room. In addition to being out of his body, Regal was unable to move. That's when he realised his body was quite incorporeal, as though he were one of his echo incarnations. Even in his dream, he was quite sure that that was what he was at that moment. He could see other echoes of himself as well, all seemingly as frozen in this alien, strange, massive laboratory room. From out of the hall, a quiet, hovering, strange-as-all-get-out object or drone or whatever came into the room and scanned one of Regal's echoes. Then it used another beam to disincorporate it. Deciding he didn't need to stand around and find out whether it was a good flavour of disincorporation or a bad one, Regal struggled and strained to free himself from whatever force was holding him static. Once he realised that, as an echo or ghost or whatever, he was incorporeal, it was easy to just drift away and out of whatever field or energy was holding him back. Not wasting time, Regal left the lab and headed down the strange hallway to what he assumed was freedom. Wherever this was, its inside seemed to stretch on forever. Miles and miles of strange, alien, organic-looking hallways leading to nowhere and beyond nowhere. He became lost and wandered aimlessly for hours and hours, days even. He would sometimes hear noises around a corner and run to see who or what it might be, but there would be nothing when he rounded on where he thought the noise had been emanating from. And then, was there humming. Eventually, an idea occurred to Regal. Wherever he was trapped inside had to have an outside, right? So why not just float out through the walls and escape? Seemed simple enough. Airtight logic, that. And with that, he just floated away through the strange walls. He did get outside, and I'm sorry to say he immediately regretted it. Wherever he was seemed beyond description. Looking around, Regal could perceive that the outside walls of wherever he had been held stretched on beyond massive in every direction. He had never seen something bend his mind with its almost infinite span. And then he noticed the mountain, stretching into a red pulsing sky and beyond into space, and beyond that, so much of what he was seeing and experiencing threatened to pull him and his mind apart. Finally, he felt his sanity disincorporate as he floated, a ghost in ether. Humming to himself. Perhaps Regal found transitioning from a non-waking to waking state a less than smooth transition on this morning. Whether he did or not, he did not say. Although he did find Varys, and asked the Eladrin cleric to speak later on the subject of dreams. At another point in the night, Brace, who was on watch at the time, noticed Answers worrying over his brother Jewel's necklace and his own. When the Dragonborn sorcerer asked what was the matter, Answers told him that he had always thought of Jewel as the reckless and irresponsible one out of the two of them. That was what the necklace had been for, the Tabaxi said. The bell necklace, which had been in one piece, had been a gift to Jewel, a kitten who found no door too large or too locked to barge his way through. Their parents had given it to him to let people know where he was, and to keep an eye on him. Or out for him, as was more like. Answers had removed the clapper from the bell and fashioned a necklace of his own with it, making one with the crown for Jewel. The idea being that Answers would keep an eye on Jewel and let him be who he had to be most days. The Tabaxi smuggler saddened, saying that now it seemed Jewel had taken on a whole sky full of evil and, while absolutely insane, didn't seem irresponsible at all. Quite the opposite, really. Answers also admitted that he hadn't lived the best life, had done questionable things. Like deliver living beings trapped in stasis tanks for shady people with no questions asked. So, who was he to Jewel now? Brace comforted the Tabaxi, telling him that just as he watched over Jewel, making sure he could be who he was no matter who he was, the sorcerer and the rest of the Ragtags would do the same for him. So, how does that sound? Brace asked. Like brotherhood, said Answers. With a full night of uneventful rest behind them, the Ragtags met the morning with a renewed purpose and spring in their step. And, even though it was snowing, it didn't seem to be as cold as the previous days. Making good time through most of the day, they pushed on further into Coldmire. At one point, Varys' owl familiar found another of that fey bard, the Bard Oregano Day scrolls inscribed with verse. Excitedly, Varys translated the Sylvan lyric for everyone. Yes, even though they were like standing in the middle of cold nowhere. This particular scroll seemed to pick up right after where the last one left off. How lucky! This scroll finds the two Archfey sisters, the Spider Queen Gwynwyn and Morgilla the Black Swan, happily residing in Slanhain, the Fey realm their parent, the weird but seemingly okay Great Shade, gifted them. Each ruled their own blissful lands. Gwynwyn in the lush arid grasses of Slanhain, and Morgilla in the lakelands of the Summer Fens. It was all beyond perfect and paradise, but, of course, things didn't stay all grasslands and lake fens forever. When Gwynwyn found herself with child, the entire realm of Slanhain rejoiced. The Spider Queen could not contain her happiness and pride. And from her halls in the Summer Fens, Morgilla sent a flight of iridescent swans to the Hain to celebrate Gwynwyn's news. Though, for the Black Swan, the taste of the tidings was not fully sweet. While she was elated for her sister, a black pang of envy pierced Morgilla's heart. For you see, the Black Swan was unable to have children. And Maybe because the Fae feel feelings in their most vibrant and intense shades. This jealousy she felt, it sank itself deep into Moragilla, and it wouldn't let go. I mean, that's pretty much where the scroll ended, so yeah, I know what you're thinking. Could this bard telegraph the foreshadowing any worse? I mean, okay, we get it. Something bad is going to happen. Oh, no? That's not what... Okay, right. So, I guess we can expect something sinister ahead for the land of Slanhain as told by the bardo Regan O'Dale. Got it. Great. Capital. Let's move on and see where our heroes find themselves next. The day's travel continued along. There was a steady light snowfall, but overall the companions were able to trudge and tramp across the frozen hills and dales. As the light became stronger in the mid-morning, Drogon noticed something behind them. Or someone, maybe. Perhaps Coldmire's monotonous icy blue-white landscape had finally gotten to the on-point half-elf. Was he seeing things? Nope, as it turns out. Darting from ice shard to ice shard, a lone figure was following. Using his goggles, Drogon was able to spy who it was shadowing the group and, well, it was definitely not who he expected. Like, at all. Do you remember Devrina? Nimnilian's fawn librarian/assistant? From Sylvania and all that? No? Maybe? Gods, it seems like so long ago now, doesn't it? Yes, that Devrina. She had, somehow, made her way through Coldmire to catch up and lend a hand to everyone, though it seemed impossible based on what everyone knew about her. She explained that she wanted to help Answers find Jewel, that she owed him that much, and added that one should never underestimate a librarian. Fair enough. After that, Unia, her Githyanki-sized suspicions aroused, kept an eye on the circumspect fawn, not at all sure Devrina really was who she claimed to be. The forthright Gith determined that indeed it was Devrina, but also she seemed to be more than everyone initially believed, as she appeared to have done this sort of thing before. Just then, the troop spotted a signpost just off the trail that seemed to be pointing to a cave entrance that was in a large iced-over slope that ran alongside the way, as well as something hanging from said signpost. It was another of those bardic scroll cases. Honestly, if this were anywhere but the Feywild, the plot-serving coincidence of these things would probably break the believability, you know? So, Varys immediately translated everything, but we'll wait to get to that in a minute. Promise. The sign itself said, in Sylvan of course, come for the chest and arms, stay for the heart. Huh. Okay. Wasting a bit of time debating whether or not to enter, everyone finally decided to sod it and just check out the random cave with the riddle sign. The dark path headed downwards from the entrance, and there was thankfully less ice and cold inside. The cave was kind of one of those you had to be there type situations, if I'm being honest. So there was a 100-foot chasm with illusory platforms that they had to carefully climb down. And at the bottom, they found another scroll. We'll get to those soon, promise. Then they had to make their way across a long, seemingly innocuous room that had pressure plates that, when triggered, released webbing from the ceiling that would grapple and then spring the victim into a cold blast rune and leave them hanging 15 feet above the ground. Thanks to Drogon and Unia to a degree, no one had to go through any of that. Then there was the simple matter of figuring out a tricksy illusion puzzle that blocked the door to a room. No problem. In the room, the heroes found a beautiful fey chest that held, after everyone was scared of it and didn't want to touch it for about 20-30 minutes, a trove of money and magic items. Ah, okay. Chest and arms. Ha! Got it. There was also a third scroll, and now we can talk a bit about what was in them. Yes, these were all by the same bardo Regan O'Dale that the others were attributed to. But these seemed to be further along in the whole tale, like maybe there were others that took place before these ones. The 3 scrolls told the tale of one Sir Dermot Springheart, an Eladrin knight sworn to protect Gwyn Wyn, the Spider Queen of Slanhain. The steadfast, though apparently arrogant, warrior was tasked with protecting the Queen, while someone known as the Firstborn was off fighting a war. During that time, Sir Dermot and Gwyn Wyn fell in love. Oh dear, yeah, that's not going to end well, is it? So, eventually Sir Dermot is tricked and seduced by the enemy, someone named the Recluse, and he leaves the Queen's side, allowing her to be assassinated. After the Firstborn returned and took care of all the enemies in the land, he dealt with Sir Dermot. And by dealing with him, we mean tearing at his heart, turning his land into a cold and frigid waste, and then transforming him into a cold and empty Ice Lord, now called Hiverneon, forced never to rest, a lonely and bitter husk for all eternity. Exposition. Ho! The Ragtags were starting to get a sense of the stakes and players in Moorcoorhain now. And as I mentioned, they also found some loot. Besides a bunch of platinum pieces and jewels, they found all manner of magic items and weapons. Well, they definitely needed an upgrade, didn't they? After getting a sense of what they found, they discovered that the way back through the strange Fey cave was now gone and a way forward had suddenly appeared. A stone stair led up to what seemed to be sunlight. Warm sunlight. Cautiously, our heroes prepare to ascend to wherever this new twist takes them. Let's give them a minute, shall we?